spending, a year or two listening to Bob, for me, the Jamaican Patois was more like a language. It wasn't a dialect. Normally you have one dialect coach on set. We ended up with a language team. It was like 7 or 8 people on set at the same time. There was the commitment to the authenticity of how Bob spoke, not just the Jamaican Patois.
And uniquely to Bob.
How Bob spoke Jamaican Patois, because Bob traveled and he picked up words from Europe and America. He was born up in the country, but he grew up in Trenchtown. So there was learning the language, but then there was also kind of understanding how Bob spoke. And everyone who knows Bob remembered, Bob talked the way Bob talked.
The British Jamaicans, the American Jamaicans, and the Canadian Jamaicans. What are the difference between all three?
English Jamaicans, them speak the patois the best.
We got everyone supporting the thing, man. You see me?
You can attribute it to because, we was a colony of England.
Right.
In terms of like white, black, whoever over there, them talk patois. Jamaicans in America only hang with Jamaicans. The culture big there, but the culture very pinpoint in like one area. And then the Canadian Jamaican, them know. Everybody over here just like the style, the Indian man. Me see Indian man, I try heal me like him a Jamaican. I know this man come straight, this man Punjabi. This man Punjabi. Big up myself, Indian man. Big up myself, my Indian friend. Out of all of them countries that we talk about, Canada more family orientated than everywhere we ever go.
So Canadian Jamaicans come out on top.
I try to mess with my money now. That I try to do.
Who comes out on top?
The reason why I go say Canadian Jamaicans come out on top
Yay!
Because my girlfriend Canadian. I'm there most of the time.
Wagwan family, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into something that really needs to be said. Jamaican Patois deserves way more global respect. Too many people still think Patois is just slang or broken English, but it's way deeper than that. At the end of the day, Patois doesn't need to change to be accepted. The world just needs to listen, really listen, and understand where it comes from. It's time we stop calling it broken English and start calling it what it really is: beautiful, bold, and 100% Jamaican. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe and like this video because we are here to celebrate Jamaica the right way.
I'm going to squash this debate right now. Patois is definitely its own language with words that have their own meaning, totally separate from any other language. Mad puss piss. I'll wait. Drunkra. I'll wait. Duppy. I'll wait. Kumujin. I'll wait. Red eye. I'll wait. Licky licky. I'll wait.
Beyond me not ruffle feathers, but I don't care. Because at what point are we going to admit that looking down on people or making people who speak in our native dialect seem less intelligent than someone who doesn't? At what point are we going to say that that's self-hate? Because it is. Because what you mean if I decide to talk in my dialect because that's how I know how to talk, that I'm dumb, that I'm not educated? Because you do know that there are different types of English, right? And of course, the number one is standard English, what we're taught, the Queen's English. At what point are we going to stop making people feel bad or trying to correct kids when they speak in our own native tongue?
Let's be real. A lot of people outside Jamaica still don't get Patois. They hear it in reggae or just dancehall and think it's just English with an accent, but that's where they go wrong.
That's because Patois partly descended from English, but not entirely. It's an English-based Creole language that developed in the 17th and 18th centuries through contact between African slaves and English-speaking slave owners. The island of Jamaica was first colonized by the Spanish, who brought the first African slaves there, and enslaved the native Taino people until they were wiped out by violence and disease. But it was after the island was taken over by Britain in the year 1655 that the African population rapidly grew, as the British brought slaves from West Africa to work on sugarcane plantations. These Africans were intentionally separated from others who spoke the same language as them, so they wouldn't be able to communicate in secret and plan a rebellion. With no common language, they did their best under harsh conditions to use the English dialects spoken by their slave masters. They didn't learn the language formally, and they had to learn the language very quickly, which resulted in the development of a pidgin language. They adopted a basic vocabulary of English words and strung them together using a simplified form of the grammar of their native languages. Eventually, when they had children, those children learned the simple pidgin language as their native language, but expanded its features and use, making it a living language used for all parts of life. That was when the pidgin language became a Creole language. The term patois comes from French and can be used generally to refer to any kind of non-standard speech, but it's also how Jamaicans refer to their Creole language. Not all Jamaican patois is the same. There are various regional and local varieties around the island. One reason is that the slave owners spoke various different dialects of English. Another reason is the mountainous terrain and isolation of the different plantations and communities from each other. When a pidgin language becomes a Creole, it becomes more complex and new features arise to make the language sufficient for everyday use. That means that in communities isolated from each other, the new features might have been different. Also, the official language of Jamaica is not patois but English, and patois is spoken on a continuum with standard Jamaican English. That means that in some situations, some speakers will essentially be speaking standard English with a characteristically Jamaican accent, while in other situations, some speakers will mix English with varying degrees of patois. And at the very casual end of the spectrum, speakers might use Jamaican patois exclusively. In technical terms, pure patois is the basilect, while standard English is the acrolect, and in the middle lies the mesolect. The acrolect, standard English, is the prestige language and the language of social mobility, while patois is sometimes considered to be incorrect English or improper speech. But patois is a distinct language with its own phonology, grammar, and vocabulary distinctions.
Patois is a language built from strength, survival, and creativity. It carries words from English, African dialects, Spanish, even French, all mixed together by people who had to find a way to communicate during some of the hardest times in history. So, when someone laughs at patois or calls it broken, they're actually laughing at generations of resilience. If you agree patois deserves more respect, drop a like right now. Patois came from struggle, but it's became power. It's the sound of freedom, the sound of people who refused to be silenced. Every word carries rhythm, emotion, and attitude. When a Jamaican says, me there, that's not just I'm here. That's pride, that's presence, that's energy. Patois gives Jamaicans a voice that no textbook could ever capture. It's not just communication, it's expression, it's art, it's culture. If you're still watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we share stories that keep the Jamaican spirit alive every week.
The closer you get to the African village in Jamaica, the deeper the patois gets. So some of it I don't understand, but the regular patois, I understand it to the T, and I speak it, get me mad, and you'll get that thing very fluent.
Even if some people don't understand patois, they feel it. From Bob Marley's One Love, the sound of Jamaica has traveled everywhere. People sing along, copy the slang, and even love the energy, even if they can't translate every word. That shows how powerful this language really is. It doesn't need permission to spread. It naturally connects with people. But too often, the world copies that sound without giving full respect to where it came from. If you're proud of Jamaica's global influence, hit like and comment. Respect the culture down below. When a language is respected, the people who speak it feel valued, and that's what patois needs, not to be corrected or made official, but to be recognized for what it truly is. Because every phrase and every tone tells the story of Jamaican strength and independence. Respecting patois is respecting Jamaican's history, its people, and its soul. It's not about politics, it's about pride. Patois doesn't have to be changed or simplified for the world to appreciate it. The world just needs to listen and learn where it comes from. Jamaicans already know its power, and that pride speaks for itself. So, whether it's in music, everyday talk, or storytelling, keep it alive. Keep it loud and keep it proud because patois isn't just a language, it's a heartbeat. If you felt this message, smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more real stories about Jamaica and the Caribbean. Big up every time, one love, enough respect.